The best evidence UFO case of all time occurred on the 17th of July, 1957, when a United States Air Force spy plane had a close encounter with an unidentified flying object. The 6-man crew of an RB47 aircraft, which was equipped with state-of-the-art electronic countermeasures equipment, including 3 electronic intelligence stations manned by highly trained Air Force personnel known as Ravens or Crows, were literally tailgated by an object that continues to defy explanation to this day.
This plane was flying out of Forbes Air Force Base, Kansas, and the crew was on a training mission to shake down the airplane and test out its components. This crew detected and recorded on wire recorders and tape recorders the electronic signals, radar-like in nature, that came from the same direction and location as the UFO. It followed them and then overtook them as they flew over Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and Oklahoma for over 2 hours that night.
The crew involved in the UFO incident was one of the top crews in the wing. They were instructors and evaluators in the standardization division and were highly respected. They had the most experience and the best training. The aircraft commander, in fact, Lou Chase, he made a landing. After takeoff, one of the outboard engines froze up and broke off and broke the wing off there, and he brought the aircraft back in at a test of his skill as a pilot. In the back end, the 3 Crows back there were the most experienced, and they trained all of the new Crows coming into the wing. Provenzano and McClure trained me when I came in, as a matter of fact. Eventually, these guys were not on the same crew because they had so much experience and knowledge that they were put on separate crews and became 3 instructors and evaluators within the wing.
As the RB-47 moved over Texas, a brightly lighted object appeared and began to follow the aircraft. Major Chase contacted Radar Station Utah at Duncanville, Texas, which confirmed that their radar had also detected the UFO.
You have a very experienced crew of a very sophisticated airplane having something very strange happen. They see it, they pick it up on their electronics, the whole crew is involved, ground radar is involved, it lasted for a long time. What more can you ask for?
The UFO continued to play tag with the RB-47, which had left its scheduled flight path to pursue the object, until the aircraft began to run low on fuel and turned to head home. The UFO followed the aircraft until the signal finally faded as the crew approached Oklahoma City. In his report on the incident, the Director of Intelligence of the 55th Strategic Reconnaissance Wing stated that he had, quote, "No doubt the electronic signals coincided exactly with visual observations by aircraft commander numerous times, thus indicating positively the object being the signal source." End quote. The Air Force, via Project Blue Book, without any real investigation, concluded that the sightings in northern Texas were an ordinary jetliner. In doing so, they failed to explain the ongoing nature of the incident over several states, the appearance and disappearance of the object, both visually and on radar and electronic countermeasures equipment, and how exactly the Utah radar station failed to distinguish between an airliner that was 600 miles away from the RB-47 and a UFO. Researcher Brad Sparks explains why the RB-47 case is the best ever, contrary to what the United States Air Force said.
Why is it so important? Because it's the only time in history that radio or radar signals have been detected and recorded from a UFO, not just are using radars to bounce signals off a UFO. We're actually detecting something that the UFO seems to be sending out.
This indication of intelligence makes the Blue Book explanation even more absurd, as does the fact that this was not the only time an RB47 encountered a UFO. Colonel Bruce Bailey recounts his own similar incident.
We were flying a Common Cause mission. This was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we flew a mission every day to go down and take a good close look at Cuba and to identify any site that should fire on the U-2 or any other U.S. vessel or aircraft. And on this mission, we would fly down to New Orleans and hit a tanker right over the Gulf of Mexico out of New Orleans, get filled up with fuel, and then head on to Cuba. Well, on this mission, shortly after completing our air refueling, we had some aircraft or something come up, bright light, and intercept us, and ground control was tracking it. They could copy it too. And it wasn't with us that long, probably a total of 10 minutes, but that was broken in the middle with a gap of about 2 minutes when it went away. The difference in our experiences than the other crew was our equipment in the back end. All we got was noise. It just wiped us out. We didn't get any intelligible signals at all.
When asked what it was that they encountered over the Gulf of Mexico, Colonel Bailey, a decorated Air Force veteran, can only offer the same conclusion reached by Major Chase and his crew 5 years earlier.
Unidentified flying object is what would explain it, I guess, because the crew up front could see it. We had no windows in the crew compartment. We couldn't see anything. But they could see it, and what they saw jived with what ground control was reporting, and the navigator could also track it on his radar. And it all tied together. There was something there, and it had a capability far greater than anything we could do. In the incident that you're talking about, as well as the incident with my crew, the follow-on was pretty much the same. You had a very thorough debriefing, and in that debriefing you were assured that you didn't see anything, you didn't hear anything, you didn't do anything, and that you would not say anything about it. I've heard of other crews and such running into similar treatment after they reported a UFO, and it got to the point that sometimes you would see something that would actually be a UFO, meaning it's unidentified, but you wouldn't say anything about it, because if you started harping or talking about a UFO incident, it was a good way to end a military career.
Apparently, as far as the United States Air Force was concerned, when its top crews, who were charged with protecting the security of the nation in the midst of the Cold War, and who often came face to face with the enemy, saw something like this, they were really just mistaking it for a civilian airliner. If that was true, any sensible Air Force should have grounded those crews immediately. But instead, they kept on flying, so long as they stayed quiet about what they really saw in the skies above us.